everyone, it's Adaptive Goddess, and today I'm going to be continuing my discussion of mindfulness with an in-depth analysis of the how skill. So the how skill for me, when I was learning this in DBT groups, always drove me crazy because I never really fully understood it. And it was hard to talk to my parents when I would talk about my therapy and say, like, this is the skill I learned. I know that I did it. I just never could really explain it. And it was always really confusing to learn it. So I'm really looking forward to providing some in-depth analysis into the skill. HOW stands for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Honesty is about staying aware of the truth no matter what. It is also about admitting, accepting, and responding to that truth no matter what it is. It is also about staying honest to yourself. Open-mindedness is about allowing yourself to become open to new ideas. It is also about allowing yourself to become more aware of what you need to do in order to change. Willingness is about being ready for voluntary change. You change your focus from wanting to change to needing to change. And it is about you becoming aware as a person that this change is going to give you a new outlook. And not necessarily change as you need to conform to whatever people are doing. Most of the time, it's changing your thinking or changing your outlook on life or even changing behaviors that can be very problematic to society at large. Willingness is so important, even though it's one of the hardest, because who wants to be willing to admit to themselves that they need to change and say, yes, I need to change. But what willingness does is that it allows for honesty and open-mindedness. So those three components of the how skill get done by three more different components. See? Starts getting kind of confusing. So these three other components of the how skill are don't judge, stay focused, and do what works. So don't judge, stay focused, and do what works are skills that are used for all three of the HOW skills. Don't judge is one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do when I changed my thinking. I am so judgmental of myself, and I would judge others and then feel bad about myself that I'm judging others. I could talk for a really long time about don't judge as a skill, but I will have another video on that, as non-judgmental stance is a mindfulness skill. But for this skill of how, don't judge means that you notice but don't evaluate the good and the bad. You acknowledge the harmful and the helpful, but don't judge it. And you don't judge yourself for judging. And you're really doing this so that you can catch when you're doing it and replace that judgment with something that's very neutral. Stay focused. Focus is important in mindfulness because it brings you back from what you are thinking and you're feeling to just being present in the moment. And that's exactly what stay focused and how skills means. It means focus your attention only on one thing in that moment. You don't multitask, even if you want to, and you concentrate your mind on letting go of distractions. My favorite way that I did this skill was actually in Wii Sports. I don't remember if it was Wii Sports Resort or just in Wii Sports, but there is a game that you sit on the balance board and you're basically looking at a candle. And it basically is giving you jump scares. And if you move or if you fidget around, instead of staying calm and focusing on the candle will go out. I remember it was one of my favorite games. I know it was one of my brother's favorite games, but it really helped us to stay mindful, and we felt so good when we were done with this game. Also, and stay focused. You don't let your past, the present, or the future interfere with what you're doing. Do what works. So you need to be effective when you are doing these skills, and only focus your energy on what does work. That does mean trial and error. So don't give up if you're working on mindfulness and you're just noticing that your brain is not focusing on something, the skill doesn't work for you. It's all about finding what works for you and focusing your energy on using those skills. Also, it involves not letting your emotions control your behaviors. You need to cut the cord, stay in wise mind when you need to make decisions, and not to act impulsively when it comes to your feelings. It is all about playing by the rules of how. So if you are doing a mindfulness exercise and the exercise is telling you to imagine your face blue or imagine your face a color, do what works means that to try it, follow what is being asked of you for this skill. You act as skillfully as you can, and you need to let go of all negative feelings that you are feeling in that moment. So yeah, this is a very complex skill in mindfulness that you will end up doing without even realizing it. But how skill is so important, not just with being present in your wise mind or knowing that you need to change something about your thinking. It is about you yourself knowing your own body and knowing your own brain and knowing your own behavior. It is really about you connecting with yourself. I do this skill without even realizing it, which is what made it so hard for me to try and explain it to someone else. And for me, I would always get caught up in my judgmental thinking. But for me, whenever I did a mindfulness exercise, I always listened to what was being asked of me and always tried to imagine what they were asking me to imagine, which wasn't hard. I have a very active imagination. But it does help. And it does help me know which skills I need to do or which skills I need to have access to and exercises that I need to keep in my back pocket for if I get distressed and I can't, for some reason, know automatically how to tolerate that distress. So why does the how skill matter? And it matters because of how we come at mindfulness in DBT. And it really is the building blocks of DBT. And it's not just thinking traps, and it's not just our wise mind, but it is the concrete steps that we take to stay present in the moment and to accept that we're not perfect. And for me, I remember before learning this skill concretely enough to actually put it into practice, whenever my parents would have a conversation with me that I didn't really want to have, I would immediately shut down. I would not really know what I'm feeling, which caused me even more judgment because they're asking me, how do I feel? And I don't know, sometimes wasn't an acceptable answer. And it got me more judgmental of myself because I didn't know how I was feeling, and I'm 13, I should know what I'm feeling. And as this downward spiral continued, I was never honest with myself. I was never open-minded to what my parents were saying, and I was never willing to listen or to change or to accept the fact that I wasn't perfect. I wasn't normal. I wasn't what I thought of myself in my head. And when I began to learn this skill and actually subconsciously do this skill, I realized that it was so okay for me to say, I don't know what I'm feeling. And that took a huge weight off my shoulders because I was then able to say and describe to them that I don't know what I'm feeling, which would then change the entire conversation to all of a sudden, oh, that's what's going on. And that put a light bulb not only in my head, but in my mom and my dad's head, that there was so much more to just me being me and not necessarily me being perfect. And that made me more open-minded and willing to share what was going on with me, what was I needing to change in my behavior. And it allowed my parents to be open-minded to my experience and my understanding of myself so that they could see eye to eye with me and not just question and assume what was going on. And that created a much more loving and much more nurturing and a lot more respectful of a relationship that I carry to this day with both my parents. Leave a comment down below if you ever remember a time that you were honest with yourself or open-minded about a new idea or willing to try something new or to change something in your life. For me, I remember being the most honest with myself when I told my mom that I never really understood what I was feeling. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and gently tap that like button. And remember to be kind, compassionate, and true to you.